Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome at this morning here at the ITB in Berlin, ladies and gentlemen, and just welcome for the ECF and ADFC Cycle Tourism Day. Yeah. This is really a big thing, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking concerning cycle tourism more than 25 years here in Germany for the ADFC. My name is Frank Hoffmann. I'm the Vice President of the ADFC, the most important cycle organization here in Germany. And while we're talking about lots of figures today, we will present you a lot of interesting persons with projects all over Europe. And well, overall, this is a very, very interesting theme for a lot of people. On the other hand, we still have to think about what is going on, how to develop cycle tourism with much more quality, because quality is always a key to success in this special thing of tourism. Cycle tourism is getting more and more important. It's really an event. Just for Germany, let me tell you, this is 10% of the whole touristic turnover of incoming tourism in Germany. And we're talking about 9 billion euro for the last year, which we really did for this thing of cycle tourism. So we are just start to have a really interesting day here today with a lot of really interesting presentations and a very, very interesting panel discussion afterwards. But we will start about, well, really about Germany, Berlin, we are Germany here. So we were talking about the story here, which we did in Germany for more than the last 20, 30 years now. And I'll give a very warm welcome to Luise Böhler. She is, today we have Women's Day, yeah, that's very clear. So even in Germany and even in IDFC, women are really doing the best work. And that's very important. She is head of tourism in the ADFC, so is leading the whole pack of guys who are doing lots of work for cycle tourism here. She will give us a really nice introduction and presentation about the German story, cycle tourism made in Germany, developing scenic cycle routes on through dramatization. So come up, Luise, and it's your show. At first, stay with me. We have a lot of things here. Just, we know about, it's all about this thing here. So join our conversation if you have something just to organize, just to tell about what is going on here. Very important, don't miss this. And again, just to give you a small introduction what will happen after Luise. We have a lot of interesting things about the whole day. So after our introduction, a lot of interesting things. You will be invited, if you stay the whole day with us, you will be invited for a small lunch even. So please stay with us. And now we are coming to the thing, cycle tourism made in Germany. Let's start, Luise.
Yeah, thank you for the nice introduction and hello to everybody. I would like to talk about product development and which role the so-called dramatization could play for that. And therefore, we will have a look at successful cycling routes in Germany. But at first, I want to tell you something about our company, about the ADFC. We are the German National Cyclists Association, and we have more than 175,000 members. And that makes us to the biggest cycling club in the world. And by the way, we are celebrating our 40th birthday this year because we were founded in 1979. And our mission is to make more people bike more often. And therefore, we are working in different fields like networking, consumer protection, or also advocacy. And we do this for both, for everyday cycling and also for the tourism sector. But now let's come to the situation in Germany. Yesterday we have released our ADFC bicycle travel analysis, and we learned again that cycle tourism is really booming. We have 5.5 million cycle tourists last year. And that's a very dynamic growth because it's an increase of 27% compared to the previous year. Yeah, you see we have a high demand, but on the other hand side, we have also a lot of products. We had a wide product range and more than 250 cycling routes in Germany and a very dense network. But That also means there's a very strong competition between the route operators and between the tourism organizations. We know that the cycle tourists are very experienced and they want good quality, and they are not really brand loyal. That means they cycle every year and go on a cycling holiday every year, but they will not visit the same destination every year again. So tourism organizations need good ideas to stand out of the crowd. And therefore they can use the product development. But before they can start this, let's have a look at the requirements for long-distance cycle routes. Therefore, we have, as ADFC, created a so-called checklists with key factors for successful long-distance cycle routes. Here are just some points. From our point of view, the long-distance cycle routes need coordination and someone who takes care of all the processes. We call it a route operator. You also need good marketing, but not only on the regional level, it's also important to link it to the national and also the international level and to talk to your board of tourism board. And of course, you have to look for the quality and the infrastructure. The most important thing, the signposting, of course, but also rest areas or parking facilities are important. But the thing I want to talk about more in detail are the thematic orientation of the cycle route. But what does it mean? It means that every cycle route needs a clear name and also a uniform name so that the tourist could keep in mind that name. And it's not good to have a different wording. So maybe if you have the Ruhr Valley route, then it should be Ruhr Valley at the whole route, not Ruhr or round trip route or whatever. So it really should become a brand. And the second thing is that it must be possible to experience the topic of the route. That means if you want to create a cycling route around a castle, then it's not enough if you see the castle one time in 6 days. So at least you need interesting POI every 15 to 20 kilometers. And it's also important that all the POIs are visible and that you have an access. It's not enough just to see Schloss Neuschwanstein. The cyclists also want to go inside, and therefore they need parking facilities. And last but not least, you should be aware of the routing. There should be no detours or unnecessary high differences. But let's come to cycling routes around main topics and how could they look like. As I told you, in Germany we have a wide product range. Maybe you have heard of this nice brochure, Discover Germany by Bike. There you can find a lot of these cycle routes. And yeah, we can say that we can divide the routes into two categories. The one with given course and the one who have no given course. With given course means that there is a routing from the nature. The most or the clearest example for that are cycling routes beside rivers, because that means that the route follows the course of the river. So a lot of things are already done by the nature, but the route operator, of course, have to look for infrastructure and to connect POIs in the surroundings. But finally, this way is a little bit easier to get a good experience of the topic because the river is already there. So that's the reason why the most successful cycling routes in Germany are cycling routes beside rivers. For example, the Weser cycle route. But there's also another way, the routes without given course. That means that somebody creates a route around a specific POI. Here are 3 examples from Germany. The first one is Route der Industriekultur, a route of industrial culture. In English, that's a route which combines mines, furnaces, and gasometers. Another nice example is Bäderradweg or Spa Cycle Route. That's a little bit like hopping between spas and baths in the south of Germany. And last but not least, we have the Schlosspark im Allgäu or Castle Park cycle loop. And that's a cycling route around the famous Castle Neuschwanstein. But if you create such a route without given course, then it's important to do some market research and to know what the customer's needs are. So from our bicycle travel analysis, we know that 63% love cultural heritage and over 30% also like swimming. So that are good factors to integrate it in the product development. But finally, this way is a little bit more complicated because you have to create all these POIs and to combine it to routing. And therefore, you can use the so-called dramatization. And now I want to tell you what does that mean. Dramatization is a possibility to highlight a topic or to underline a topic. And there are two different ways or approaches how we can do it. The first one, it's a kind of valorization of the landscape through additional infrastructure elements. And the second thing is just to include existing POIs for specific target groups. Here are some nice examples. Here you can see, we call it listening areas. That are service points, and you can go there and get additional audio information via your smartphone and QR codes. And that's a nice example. It's used by the cycle route Liebliches Taubertal in Bavarian. Another way is viewpoints or also such big frames, and you can put them in the landscape, and there you can have a perfect scenic view on specific POIs or also on the landscape at all. So that's a nice ways to highlight your cycle route, and you can also use them for cycle routes with given course. Lots of cycle routes beside rivers like the Elbe cycle route also use such frames. And now, at the end, I will show you some pictures for the inclusion and additional POIs. That's a very nice example for routes for families or children. That's a very nice playground, and it looks like a ship. And here's another one. It looks like a castle, and that would be a way to highlight a castle route or something like this. But just another link at the end, or hint, it's also a good way to involve the regional agriculture. For example, you have heard of so-called Melkhus. That's a very famous cafe in the north of Germany, and they are serving milk drinks. So it's good to talk to your farmers or also the gastronomy and to combine it to your cycle route. Yeah, that were just some examples how product development could be or how you can use dramatization. And if you want to know more about it, you can, of course, talk to me in the lunch break. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much to Luise Böhler from ADFC. I think very interesting figures concerning what is going on in Germany and some nice view, especially on the theme of dramatization. So let's start really to get more into it. We are just presenting a panel discussion concerning the development of scenic cycle routes and trails through natural and cultural landscape, which is really a big theme. So, I'm just giving a warm welcome now to Adam Bodor. He is at the EuroVelo network. He is the director of this very important network, working all European-wide for the ECF, so the European Cyclists Federation. Give him a warm welcome. Welcome.
Thanks, Frank. Yes, I'm dealing with the EuroVelo network, the European Cycle Route network, together with my amazing colleagues here on the ITB. And I'm really, really proud that I don't have to talk about EuroVelo and cycling tourism alone, because we have a great list of panelists. You can see their name on the screen already. I would like to ask them one by one to come to the floor. First, Peter de Bruyne from UNESCO. I think, Peter, yeah, please join us. I think all of you know UNESCO. He is dealing with the heritage program at UNESCO, so please give an applause to him. I would like to also ask Marta Czelowska from Pomorskie region, from Poland, to join us. She's the director of the tourism board. Big supporter of cycling. And I would like to also ask Pia Zimmermann from Ruhr Tourismus. Pia, please join us. She's dealing with active tourism in the Ruhr Tourismus. And because we are an international conference, we also would like to ask the Dutch, who are leading always in cycling topics. So Leon Hoogsten from the FITS platform. Leon, please join us. A FITS platform is an organization dealing with the coordination of the cycle routes in the Netherlands, if you didn't know it yet. And I would like to ask Luciana Natalia Jerkovic from the Croatian National Tourism Board. Lucy, please join us. She's head of PR at the Croatian Tourism Board, and Croatia is one of the booming business regarding tourism. So they will be my help today to talk about cycling tourism in general. And of course, I have some questions prepared to them. So the first question will go to Marta. You know, Marta, your region is along the Baltic Sea. Beautiful sandy beaches, tourists are coming, the beaches are already crowded in summer. Why you decided to invest in cycling tourism in general?
Thank you that you introduced my region as a dream, and during the summer it is a dream real. But taking up new challenges, we always look at the trends and the way of developing of Europe. So I think that now this is the point to take care of natural resources. We have to preserve natural resources to channeling tourist movement, tourist traffic, and we have to remember that natural resources build our brand. So Pomorskie region and biking, of course, this is the way of tourism which preserve natural resources. But second thing is that Pomorskie region is a very well-known destination, a summer resort. So the tourist traffic mostly is at coastal zones and free city, Gdańsk, Gdynia, Sopot. That's why we started to change the brand and to prolong the season to entire all voivodeship. And active tourism and biking tourism, this is a good tool for it. So that's why, as self-government, we decided to invest to biking trails. And using EU funds from last period, we decided to build over 600 kilometers and 85 these points, maybe not sophisticated, but useful for bikers. And I think that it will prolong our season. As a result, in 2 or 3 years, we will get 3 EuroVelo trails, number 10 along the coast. And this is the same as Iron Curtain Trail. And also along Vistula River, number 10. As a result, it's not only the point to get the trails. The point is to get good offer, good product, which could be sold, for example, by tourist agencies to our guests. And to get it, as a result, we need good cooperation with different kind of partners. We cooperate not only with tourist offices, but also with hostels, so owners of accommodation, guides, restaurants, and many, many others. And that's why we like biking.
Great, thanks a lot. So if we were saying that there are a lot of tourists in summer in the Baltic Sea coast, I think it's even more true for the Mediterranean route. So Lucy, you are representing the Croatian Tourist Board, and we know that the Mediterranean region already receives 300 million tourists every year. So why you think cycling tourism can help to handle this tourism flow? You have already a lot of tourists.
Very true. So 300 million in the Mediterranean. Croatia itself had over 18 million arrivals last night on a population of 4.2 million. So that's quite a number of tourists coming into the country every year. But it's more an issue of seasonality, and I think Marta already touched upon that, the congestion that happens during the peak summer months. And with the Mediterranean, unlike the northern area, we're lucky enough to have a more moderate climate. So to extend the seasonality into spring and fall, or pre and post seasons, and even year-round tourism, cycling is a direct fit. With Croatia specifically, one of the pillars of our strategy is active tourism, of which cycling is one of these pillars. And we've started building out the infrastructure and all of the things that were mentioned during the earlier presentation.
Pickpockets can be a problem for tourists as well.
And after that public service announcement, I would say that I would continue with it being an ideal fit. So it's one of multiple active tourism products that we're developing. But it's one that is, I think, the highest growing for us in Croatia. And aside from drawing tourists through the development of the routes, we've also developed various cycling events. So from professional cycling events that go across the country, similar to the Tour de France, we have Tour of Croatia that's been 5 years running. We have mountain biking that has become popular, off-road cycling routes that have become rather popular. And I would say a selling point for Croatia is the inland versus the coast. We have this interesting mix as well as the islands. So it has extended our season substantially, and I would say that it's one of the main drivers for the pre and the post season. And we have certain markets that really love to travel to Croatia because of that.
Yeah, I think many of us love to travel to Croatia. Thanks a lot. Maybe if you talk about destination, it's also interesting where these people are coming. And I think the Ruhr area is one of the most densely populated area in Europe, one of the main source of tourists or cycle tourists in general. But as I see, they would like to also be a destination for cycle tourists. So what gave the idea for Ruhr Tourism PIA to create the Römer-Lippe route and the Curtail route and to become a cycling tourism destination, not only a source market for other regions?
Yes, well, as we've heard before, cycling along the water and along rivers is quite popular. And well, first there was the Ruhr river cycling route, and basically it was the idea of the Ruhr area and the Sauerland area, independently from each other, to actually create a cycle path from the source of the river in the Sauerland area up to the River Rhine in the Ruhr area. We were talking about themed routes and dramatization. Actually, there's a great contrast of nature and landscape and hilly landscape in the Sauerland region. And then, of course, we heard it before, we have a unique selling point. We have our industrial heritage, the old mines and furnaces and so on that actually they turned into museums, and that's actually a great contrast. And so we have the great topic of cycling along the river, and so that actually became quite attractive. The Ruhr cycle route was opened in 2006, so it's already the route is already in her 13th year, and it's been quite successful. So since there's another river in our area in North Rhine-Westphalia, which is the River Lippe, so we thought, okay, the Ruhr has been quite successful, and in the north of the area there have been the Romans that have actually established settlements on their way to the east along the River Lippe. And there we have this other topic. There used to be a Roman cycle route, And we thought it would be nice to combine the two topics, Roman culture and cycling along the water, along the river, and experience the water. So we combined those two topics, established signage along this route, and we also did a little bit of diversification. We have round routes they're actually for cyclists who want to do day trips. It's a combination of the main route and and an alternative route up to 20, 30 kilometers. So that's actually nice for people who live in the area to have a nice day out cycling. So that was basically the idea. So we used a little bit of that thematic theme.
Thanks, Pia. So you followed the recipe which was just presented by the ADFC to have a successful route. If we talk about success in cycling and cycling tourism, we have to talk about the Netherlands as well. And we are talking about creating new routes and creating successful cycling tourism products. What's the situation in the Netherlands? Everything is perfect there. Everything is ready. So, Leon, what's new in the Netherlands? What's your new approach regarding this? I heard some rumors that you would like to take a different path now.
Yes, we are. For the long-distance cycle network in the Netherlands. That's because this long-distance cycle network, we started creating that over 30 years ago. And by then it was state of the art. But since then the world has changed. The infrastructure in the Netherlands has changed. And well, from what I heard, people always look at the Netherlands, but inside the Netherlands, we take things now and then for granted. And I think that's, we have to be careful with that. When I hear my colleagues and when I hear the plans of Croatia as well, cycling tourism as a destination, it's developing quickly in whole of Europe. So we need to invest as well. And this is a good point in time to do so. Because next to the long distance network, we also have got a nationwide network of local junction routes. And they are mainly developed for day trips. But because they are nationwide, we don't need two networks anymore. We don't need a network of long-distance cycle routes. So we are starting with developing this network of 26 routes into about 10 teamed routes. And those routes don't need to be a network anymore. And we are looking really carefully for really strong routes, good infrastructure, good safety, and really strong teams, and also take a good look at the branding of each route. And the first one is opening the 25th of April, and it's also part of the international Meuse route. Yeah.
We will talk about the Meuse a little bit later. Thanks a lot. So it's an interesting approach. So actually too many routes can be also disturbing.
More focus. And like now it's more, especially for incoming tourists, it's a bit like a Chinese menu. You know, there's a lot of choice, and it's hard to pick one. So when you have less routes, you can focus more. I think that's important.
Thanks, Leon. I hope soon other countries will face the same challenge as the Netherlands, having too many well-developed routes, but I think it's important to learn the lessons. It's also interesting for us to learn that, of course, cycle tourists are interested for cultural landscapes, cultural heritage, and UNESCO is dealing with these issues. So I would like to ask you, Peter, what are the main challenges UNESCO World Heritage Sites are facing because of tourism, because of over-tourism?
Well, I think we have this new term called over-tourism, where we're having too many people at a destination at one time. And obviously for the management authorities, this is a problem. So on the one hand, it's a bit of a numbers game, but on the other hand, it is a management issue. So UNESCO takes this very seriously. And one of the issues and one of the pillars of UNESCO's approach is really trying to encourage people to stay longer in a destination and to really experience it in a way that reflects the values of the heritage that's there and tells the story of why that site was inscribed on the World Heritage List. This is very important. to travel a bit differently and deeper. And I think cycling tourism is perfect for that. So it's one of those. I think it's a diversification that needs to happen when you're on a holiday and perhaps you are going to Dubrovnik, and we know in Dubrovnik that the cruise tourism comes at a certain time of day. So during that day, get on a bike and go somewhere else. So don't add to the numbers in that. And I think thinking that way, thinking more strategically and innovatively, could potentially help lessen those high numbers at those peak times. And cycle tourism is interesting for the other reasons that have been discussed. That, the shoulder seasons, the off seasons. If you go to the Mediterranean in August, you probably don't want to be on a bike. It's too hot, right? But I spent time in Mallorca, and Mallorca is there's a World Heritage Site on part of the island, and the other part of the island is very well known sand sea destination, and that's great. That's people go there for that. But you go to the other part, and it's full of cyclists because it's competitive cycling because it's a mountainous area. So I think these kinds of approaches are a way to do that. The diversification of the product, to make sure that it aligns with the heritage values, and to see how we can get people to travel at different times to sort of alleviate those big numbers, because I think it is a problem.
Do you see already openness from the World Heritage sites toward these things to integrate cycling?
Yeah, I think we do, and it's certainly the natural sites. It's obvious. We have many. With UNESCO, we have cultural sites and natural sites, but we also have mixed sites when there's cultural and natural. And I think we, the ones that are really aligned with cycling tourism are obviously what we call the cultural landscapes. And many of them, as you can imagine, are along a river, the Danube, the upper middle Rhine Valley, the Wachau in Austria, or some of the mountainous sites like the Dolomites in Italy. So it's a natural fit, and people want to have that experience when they are in those destinations. And that's very important, because you want to, when you're on holiday, you want to have that deeper experience, and you want to take the time and taste and feel and smell. A pine tree forest is going to be different in Norway than it is going to be in the Mediterranean context.
Thanks. Leon, what the heritage sites should do if they would like to attract more cycle tourists? So what would be the Dutch recipe for that one?
Well, I think it really comes to infrastructure. When you are visiting the Netherlands, cycling is a part of experience in the Netherlands. And so experience in the Netherlands and visiting, for example, UNESCO sites, it really comes together with cycling. And what we also see is that some cultural heritage areas are a bit too crowded. And you see that right now we are really in a process of managing over-tourism. And I think cycling is part of the answer to it. So, and then it's not a question how do you get more, but how do you spread tourists? Okay. And I think cycling for the Netherlands is really a way to solve this. Yeah.
And when you talk about infrastructure, you talk about cycle paths or bicycle parking facilities, or? Yeah,
all of that. It really starts with good infrastructure, and you need to build safety first. And once people they feel safe to get on a bike, and then you can focus on other things. But it really starts with a good infrastructure, good facilities, and after that you can work on things like marketing and stuff like that. Yeah.
Good. Thanks, Lucy. What kind of concrete measures do you plan in the frame of the MEDCYCLETOUR project to attract more cycle tourists in the region? If we talk about concrete measures.
With the MEDCYCLETOUR project, that's with the EuroVelo 8 route through Croatia, it's actually rather ambitious for Croatia. Our coastline is about 1,770 kilometers, not including the islands. And the 7 routes, part of EuroVelo 8, is 1,100 kilometers, primarily along the coast, but moving inland at one area. So from the northern tip of the Adriatic all the way down to Dubrovnik, a UNESCO site. So since 2017, when the inception of the project started, Croatia has started with basically vetting all of the ideas, and input seminars were held with all of the stakeholders. There was a series of workshops and education that lasted throughout 2017 and 2018, and there was a pilot route that was chosen, and that pilot route has been set up rather nicely. There's 116 kilometers of route that is now ready from Maslenica to Zadar, and nearly ready from Beograd to Šibenik, which has all been signposted, marketed, with all of the necessary infrastructure. So the promotional activities around that route and other future routes that are being developed within the project have started. So from the promotional brochures, which are already ready, with the website, which is pre-launch with all of the GPX data for the routes, including altitude and everything that goes along with that, so that you can see whether they're difficult routes or not. Because this is already ready now, there's study trips planned for both journalists and experts in the field for this spring. So those are other things to raise the awareness of the route's existence. But also very importantly is we'll be hosting the conference for the project board in Zadar in April. So these are all things to keep the communication flow happening. But what we've noticed, aside from all the things that the tourism board has done with all of the stakeholders, is how it has a ripple-on effect to the industry in general. Sorry. Sorry.
No problem.
Don't have any water in the glass.
Okay.
So there's been a ripple-on effect to the tourist sector. Thank you. Just 1 second. I think I only
Sorry.
need a sip. My apologies. So the ripple-on effect, I think, has happened with the private enterprises, from everything from the hotels, starting to set up infrastructure to be able to accept cycle tourists, to locals offering cycling tours, to bike rentals, to facilities for bike repairs, to certain sub-regions within the country that are preparing to join these cycle routes, but also local cycle routes, where they've set up points of interest that were discussed earlier on in the initial presentation, where they've set up rest stops, where they've set up service facilities. And with Croatia, even though the summer is the time when you really won't necessarily want to cycle, they've also taken into account the cyclists that come during the summer. So there's been some innovative approaches as to what these rest stops even look like. So from solar power energy, so that they can charge their phones, to the way that they're put in certain areas so that they offer shade for the cyclists, that there's water accessibility, that there's self-service stations being created. So it's had this very positive ripple effect.
Great, thanks, Lucy. It sounds like investment starts to go in cycling tourism in Croatia as well. But I think those investments which go into cycling tourism can be used by local population as well. So, Pia, in the rural area, you have an incredible amount of local population. So, are they using the cycling facilities, or those facilities have double use there?
Yes, well, we have a lot of, especially when it's a warm weekend or something like that, our river routes can actually get quite crowded, especially in the Ruhr, along the river Ruhr. There's a lot of day touring going on. Because we have a very, very high density of population, and we already try to encourage the people to, of course, go to the Römer-Lippe route, use the circle, the round trips for the day trips, to actually go through the industrial area of the Ruhr area, and you know, to get away, a little bit away from the river Ruhr on the weekends. We have a lot of commuters throughout the week who use the river cycling routes for their way to and from work. So, which is quite useful for us, because infrastructure and maintenance is key, and we have a lot of people who live in the area, and they call us up, they send us emails and tell us, oh, there's a broken signage, there's a sign missing, there's a huge branch on the cycle path. So they help us to keep up maintenance as quickly as possible. So that's quite useful. In order to make it a little bit more comfortable for commuters to get to and from work, at the moment there's a sort of a cycle highway being built from east to west. It's going to take a couple of more years, but it's basically designed as a cycling highway. It's very, very wide, and there's going to be lighting when it's dark, for example, and it's basically meant for everyday commuters to use it to be like as a quick way of getting through the whole area. We think it's going to be interesting because we already have a lot of questions from people if they can visit the highway, if they can have a look at it. So it's probably going to be quite interesting for tourists as well. We have one tour operator who's already offering guided tours along the pieces that are already finished. Still, it's of course it's for everyday mobility by bike. But we already have tourists interested in cycling over there. So yes, we have a very, very large variety of cycling paths, but it's also very crowded in the Ruhr area.
Thanks, Pia. Yeah, cycle highways are a big thing everywhere in Europe, especially in Northwest Europe. We are involved also in a project with the Ruhr region which is called Chips on Cycle Highways. And if you talk about international cooperation, I think my last question goes to Marta to tell us why does it make sense to cooperate on the international level along cycle routes? What can benefit from it? So I think you have a good example on this issue.
Yes, because the question is very simple. It seems to be like this, but of course this international cooperation, from one side, it's a tool to build a brand of the partners, but using, for example, soft programs like Interreg, we can learn from each other, from our partners. We can change the experiences and find a new solution, especially in cycling tourism. It's very helpful. And I think it's also because mostly the projects are promotional projects, so they draw attention to our regions, to our values, natural values and unique culture values, so we can show them on bigger area. Yes, it's the promotion is done for the people from abroad, and this is very useful. But for example, our region is located at the Baltic Sea region, so we try to follow the Baltic Sea strategy, and the horizontal ideas are, for example, sharing economy and ecological solutions. Also pro-health, and this economical aspect is very important when we try to develop cycling as a part of our industry, because this is not only style of life, but it's also a part of industry. It creates good development of the region. But also, maybe this is the point to say about our experience or our example, that this Baltic Sea strategy, one of the priorities is tourism, and we need something like an umbrella. So we need a flagship project which collects all our projects, all our activities. And it's not only about money, it's sometimes about the cooperation and more powerful activity, more visible, bigger visible, or maybe how to say, we would like to be more visible for being together, yes, with the cycling activities, and that's why this cooperation is very important. Thank you.
Thanks, Marta. Actually, it was a good final word. Thanks a lot for your cooperation today, on being on our panel today and sharing your experiences and knowledge with us. I hope you will stay with us in the lunch break and in the afternoon, so people, if they have questions, can come to you. But once more, thanks a lot. Please give them an applause. I think it was very, very useful. And then, thanks. And then we go ahead with our program. As you saw in the program, we have some announcements. EuroVelo is about cooperation. EuroVelo is about international cycle routes. But it's not a static network. in the last few years, the network was growing. So from the original 12 routes, we added new and new routes. So the Iron Curtain Trail number 13, the Rhine Cycle Route 15, the other routes were added, and now we reached the number 19 because we have a new route in our network, the MEDCYCLETOUR route, which will follow the river Meuse. It's an amazing river connecting European countries, one of the most important rivers in Europe, a river through history. And this will have the number 19 in our network because it's a north-south route, over 1,000 kilometers, 6 stages, connecting France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. So please welcome our brand new EuroVelo route, the MEDCYCLETOUR route number 19 in our network. And I will ask the representatives of the network to come on stage. Representing France and the Netherlands, Leon. Just please join us on the stage. And Romain Tilly, yes, Romain Tilly from France, nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And would like to very warmly welcome you in our network, both of you, once more.
Thank you.
Just let some people take some pictures of us. Oh, we have to stand in the middle. So next year when we are coming, the next EuroVelo map will contain the Meuse route. Okay, if everyone is done. Okay.
We should be paid.
Okay. Great. Thanks once more, and you can take the signs with you. You can decide. It's an international cooperation. Don't rip it into two. Just continue cooperating on it, and we are really, really pleased that ECF is part of this cooperation. And other announcement today is the Cycling Tourism Awards. My great colleagues in the last few weeks were checking the visitor figures on the EuroVelo.com website, and they were also running a survey, a questionnaire among our users to find out which is the most popular cycle route in Europe and which is the most popular country among our visitors in Europe. So I can tell you now the results. Let's start with the most popular EuroVelo route. The most popular EuroVelo route in 2018 was a very, very tight competition. On the third position, we have EuroVelo 1, the Atlantic Coast route. They did an amazing job in France, in Spain, and they climbed up to the third position on our list. The second position went to the last year winner, to the Rhine Cycle Route, still holding stand, but we have a new winner this year. And this year, the EuroVelo 6, the Atlantic Black Sea route, is the winner of the most popular EuroVelo route 2018. Please give an applause to them. And I would like to ask Vladan from the Danube Competence Center to come on stage and take this award from me, because they did an amazing job. So I think the change in the ranking is not only because the work which was done in Northwest Europe, because they do a great job since a long time, but because they did an amazing job in the southern part of the Danube route as well. Thanks, Vladan.
Yeah, thank you too. And maybe you can just visit us. We are here at the stand 200.
Sure.
Yeah. Maybe you can also come to our stand. We are here in this hall number 210. So I have some maps and stuff that maybe we can share. And also this year, in cooperation with ECF, we are going to publish a new application for the mobile phones called the Danube Cycling Route. So be sure to download it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vladan. Yeah. As I mentioned, we were not only talking about the most popular cycle route in the EuroVelo network, but also about the most popular country in 2018. It was again a fierce competition, and the third place, we got Austria. They have a nice new website, a coordination center created in the last few years. Things started to get moved faster in Austria regarding EuroVelo as well. So it's not a surprise that they got third on our list of European countries. The second went to Germany. Germany is not only a big source of cycle tourists, a world champion in cycling tourism, but also a destination among all European cycle tourists. First place goes to France. According to our statistic, France was the winner in this one. So I would like to ask Fabienne Fessler. Fabienne? Yeah. From Alsace. Please take the award representing France.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, we have to stand in the middle with the EuroVelo sign. Thanks. Thanks a lot. So, they did an amazing job. It's not a surprise. We will come back to you next year again. I think the competition will be still fierce in the cycling tourism market, but it's a good news because it's a booming business. Thanks to you, thanks to your work, and thanks to the cycle tourists which are happy to come to your region and spend their money and boom your economy. I will give back the floor to Frank to say some final words to you, and thanks a lot for your attention. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Adam, for this nice presentation. Really, we know a lot of development concerning cycle tourism in Europe. Yeah, and now we are just on the half of the day, and you see there's still some things to do. We have a lot of interesting things on the adventure stage this afternoon, but at first, really a big thank you for you joining us on this interesting day until now. You're now invited, really, from EuroVelo and the ECF to a small lunch, which is only this way, just only, I think, 100 meters, so maybe just follow Adam and his team afterwards. This will happen, and then I think we will see us again at 14 o'clock, just at the adventure stage, when we can join such a lot of interesting things like connecting Europe across the Alps, or how to develop successful cycle tourism products. A lot of interesting input. So thank you very much for your attendance by now, and see you in this afternoon. Thank you very much.